Who wants to be perfect? Actually, perfectionism sounds really boring to me. Perfectionism is an impossible standard that a lot of us like to set for ourselves because we think the logic behind it is, well, if I set the goal at perfection, then I'll try really hard and I'll do really, really well, even though I know I can never be perfect. But this really sets us up for failure, and we will always feel like a failure when the standard is perfection. I encounter this a lot when I coach people, whether it's one-on-one or in group coaching. And when I'm doing group coaching where we're actually building qualities of identity, it has come up a few times where people want to be a perfectionist. And I'm like, that's not a positive quality. That's actually a very negative quality. I mean, when you set yourself up for something like that, you're basically going to make yourself feel unsuccessful, unworthy, and like a failure, because you'll never experience what would be considered success because you'll never be perfect. And this creates a real problem. So it's not a positive quality. It's actually a very negative quality. And the end result is most of the time we don't want to do anything because we are afraid of messing up. So we do less, not more. And we don't do great things like we're meant to do. Now, before I go even further into this, if you find yourself liking this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And of course, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and the bell so you'll be notified when I put new videos out, which tends to be every Wednesday and every Saturday. As you probably know, I teach NLP. I coach people using NLP, but primarily I focus on one particular model, and that is the self-concept model created by Steve Andreas. He was my mentor, and when he introduced this model to me, it was immediately I could tell this was the most powerful NLP model that I had ever come across and the most transformational. And in this model, one of the things that we do is we find out, well, how do you even know you are a particular quality? Like a quality that you value, like kindness or success. Like, let's say you value success, but you don't feel like you're a successful person, or maybe you do sometimes and maybe you don't. So what we do is we elicit this database. How do we even know we are a particular quality? Well, the main way that we know this is we have examples of it. We have memories of doing things that we consider this quality, or maybe we have a lack of these things and that's why we're not feeling it so strongly. What's really interesting is you have an entire database of examples, and they're coded in such a way that either tells you that these are certain and these mean you are this quality, or it's coded in such a way that tells you this is uncertain, it's shaky. One of the very interesting things that Steve discovered whenever he was sorting all this out is we have what we call counterexamples. Counterexamples mean examples that are counter to you being this quality. So for example, I have this quality of success. And if it's ambiguous, meaning I feel like I am successful sometimes and sometimes I'm not, I don't feel it's certain all the time, then I know then I have a lot of counterexamples, times when I was unsuccessful, times that I failed. And they're being coded in such a way that those counterexamples feel very real to me, and they compete with the positive examples of me being successful. So I have these two and I kind of go back and forth. And you know, even the word ambiguous, ambi, it's like you go back and forth. Well, I am, no, I'm not. No, I am, I'm not. What Steve discovered is that when those counterexamples are not fully integrated into your database of a quality, it makes the quality feel more shaky. And it's kind of counterintuitive if you think about it. What most people try to do is when they have counterexamples, something counter to examples of their behavior that are counter to a behavior or a quality that they value, we tend to try to push it away. But that's actually going to work against you, because then what it creates is a database that is pure and more like resembling perfection. And that's actually very shaky. That when you have a pure database, it's actually weak because it can easily be shattered when you encounter contradictory evidence, which is what a counterexample is. But when those counterexamples are integrated into them, it's kind of like a metal's a pure metal, like pure gold, is actually very soft. It's not hard, so you have to mix in other metals. And the same thing goes for like swords. Swords typically are alloys. They have other metals mixed into them, which make them stronger. And if you didn't have that, they would be much weaker. So it's when you do a mixture of these counterexamples with positive examples actually makes the quality feel even stronger. Well, I remember first learning this and thinking, wow, it's so counterintuitive, because we like this feeling of purity. And that's what perfectionism is, a feeling of purity. And while it might feel good, it is actually very, very weak. And so we want to mix our imperfections. We want to accept our imperfections alongside the things that we do that are good, that we value. And this gives them a nice contrast. It also helps us identify more of what we want to do, it helps call our attention to those mistakes ahead of time so we can anticipate them and not do them again. Another powerful thing that it does is it shows us that even when we make mistakes, we still are this quality that we value. So when you accept your imperfections, what you're doing it's a way of accepting yourself. These imperfections are part of you. So you're accepting yourself more. And in accepting yourself more, you basically are accepting that, yes, indeed, you are a worthwhile human being despite your flaws, because we all have them. And so you're not going to get rid of them by trying to be perfect, and you're not going to get rid of them by trying to pretend like you never made any mistakes. It's never going to happen. So some great side effects to accepting your flaws and accepting your imperfections is it makes you more open to feedback. So if you're able to accept imperfections about yourself, when somebody gives you some criticism, and hopefully it's constructive, and even when it's not, you will say, oh, okay, well, let me listen to that. Maybe I'll agree with it, and maybe I won't, but you won't get so defensive about it. In addition to being more open to feedback, we will also tend to be more compassionate toward others, which will help us connect with people and build rapport with people even better. If I'm willing to accept my imperfections, then I'm more willing to accept other people's imperfections. And people can feel that when you're a very accepting person. And it really starts with you. It really starts with accepting your own imperfections, not making excuses for them, just accepting it. And when you're dealing with other people, they will feel like, oh, wow, I don't have to be perfect around this person. I feel accepted by this person, even when I goof up, even when I make mistakes. So when you become more accepting of your own imperfections, you become more accepting of other people's imperfections, and it just makes you much more sympathetic and compassionate and helps you connect better with other people. The other thing is that if you're willing to accept when you make mistakes, you're more likely to correct those mistakes. If you're unwilling to accept them, if you're unwilling to accept your imperfections, then you can't really do anything about it, because doing something about it means you have to first accept that you're imperfect, that you have this flaw. If you want to improve this, if you want to correct your flaws, if you want to make improvements, you first have to accept that there are improvements to be made, that there are flaws to be corrected. To better yourself, to improve yourself, and not to be perfect, but to improve on it, you first have to accept it. And last, but certainly not least, is the more willing you are to accept your imperfections, the more likely you are to get out there and do things and not be afraid of failing, not be afraid that you're getting it wrong. Not being afraid of being imperfect. And we all start here. When you level this ideal of perfectionism over yourself with everything that you do, well, then you do nothing, because you're too afraid to make a mistake. You're too afraid to be imperfect because you're unwilling to accept that. But when you finally accept it, then you go, okay, well, I can get out there. I know it's not going to be perfect. I know I'm going to fail several times. No big deal. I'll just collect that as information and keep going forward and keep doing things. And sure, it doesn't feel good when we fail or we let ourselves down, but there's no point in adding the extra pressure of being perfect, so just take that off. And so you'll get out there, you will do more, and because you do more, you will succeed more. And when you succeed more, you'll become more confident. When you become more confident, you'll do even more, and you'll succeed even more. And you'll be willing to accept that things are not always going to go well, and you're not always going to perform at your best, but you're going to get out there and do it anyway. Letting go of this idea of perfectionism and accepting your imperfections will free you in so many ways, and you'll truly tap into your potential. So to summarize all this, perfectionism is a trap. Accept your imperfections. If you want to take this even deeper into the identity level and creating an extremely strong sense of self so that you're more confident, so that you do more, so that you get out there do more, succeed more, then you will want to get your hands on the Elements of a Healthy Self-Concept, which was created by my mentor, Steve Andreas. In the description right here down below, if you click the link, you'll get a free PDF on the Elements of a Healthy Self-Concept. I wish I had learned this many years ago. It would have saved me a lot of feelings of being unworthy and unsure of myself and doubting myself. So get your hands on those Elements of a Healthy Self-Concept. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button and the bell so you'll be notified when I put new videos out. And last but not least, if you can think of a friend or a family member who would benefit from this video, make sure you share it with them. Take care.